Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Gabrielle and I'm a tax manager at one of the big four accounting firms. And here on my channel, I like to discuss topics related to personal finance, career, and work-life balance. So if those topics interest you, feel free to hit that subscribe button down below and it would mean a lot to me. Today, I would like to dedicate a video to the new starts who may be starting out in public practice and some survival tips on how to create a good reputation at the firm. So you landed a job at one of the big four accounting firms or in public practice. Congratulations to you. With work only a few weeks or a few months away, you may be getting a little bit nervous about how to prepare your first day at work. Looking back on my early days, I thought it would be helpful for you if I would compile a couple of tips on how to create a good reputation at the firm as a new start and without you really stressing over whether you've prepared enough for a first day of work. The first tip that I have for you is to be open-minded and have a positive attitude in accepting all kinds of work that might come your way. You just finished 4 years of university studying accounting and you're ready to be dealing with big client work and interesting projects. However, as a new start, you have to keep in mind that you're there to learn and you sort of have to pay your dues, even if it means doing manual and boring stuff such as admin work. You may start with doing work that may not be that glamorous and that nobody else really wants to do, but someone needs to do them, right? The most important thing out of this whole thing is that you show a positive and willing attitude and that you're open to learning. And of course, if you do a really good job, then you'll start having fans on your side and seniors who would want to work with you. And those are the people who sort of have influence over the types of projects and interesting client work that you might be assigned to going forward. The second tip that I have for you is to do your homework and your due diligence before going to a senior for questions. When I first started work, I thought of my seniors as mentors rather than teachers. And you sort of have to think of it this way. In university, you pay for your tuition and in a way that pays for the teachers, the professors' salaries. So you feel inclined to ask questions that you may have and use that as a resource. Versus the workplace, it's different because you're the one getting paid to learn and to do a good job, essentially. And so the seniors are not there at your disposal to answer every single question that you may have. Rather, seniors are more like a guide who are ensuring that you're going down the right path when you're doing your projects and to make sure that you're not spinning your wheels too much because that means higher WIP or work in progress billings, which would affect the margin in terms of your billable hours and how much you get to charge a client. So keep in mind that seniors have their own jobs too and that they're busy people and that they would really appreciate it if you keep the following things in mind. First, when you're going through a task or project, make sure that you compile your list of questions. Unless there is one big fat question that you need to ask in order to go to the next step or to progress. After you compile a list of questions, try to find ways to answer the questions yourself. So for example, do some research on credible sources or even refer to prior year files to see if someone asked the same questions that have answers already documented. The peers that you started work with are also a good source of information because they're in the same boat as you. They are also new to everything and they may have came across those questions and have figured out the answers themselves. Peers are also a lot easier to go to questions because they are more willing to help you find those answers. As a manager who reviews juniors' work, I always appreciate it when I see that the junior has tried at least to figure out the questions themselves before coming to me. And at the end of the day, you have to remember that all time is billable and that a senior's time is more expensive or valuable than a junior's time. So if it takes a little bit of effort from a junior to try to figure out the questions themselves, that is a lot more time saved and billing saved from a firm perspective. And another important tip that might seem obvious, but not everyone does, is to always self-review your work and your emails before sending them to a senior for review or to a client. You may be surprised upon, first or second review of your own work that there may be some really insignificant errors or spelling mistakes that you could have easily fixed before sending them out, and that ultimately affects your reputation and your professionalism. The third tip that I have is, as a new start, to really try to understand what you are doing rather than copying, let's say, prior year's work. As a new start, you have the advantage of being green. And that means that nobody really expects you to know much and that people are more willing to understand if you make silly mistakes. Because to face it, everyone has been in the same shoes as you. What does this mean exactly? It means that it is okay to make mistakes and to ask questions. I beat the points that I mentioned before. And also that you're not expected to be delivering perfect results. This is a time for you to be absorbing things like a sponge, given that there is such a steep learning curve, especially for the first year or two. While it might be tempting to just get the work done because you have a crazy schedule, but I advise that this is a time for you to build a strong foundation, and that means to ask questions and to understand the work that you're actually doing instead of simply following prior year's files or just going the easy way out. Obviously, as a new start, you're not expected to have discovered all the new client issues, but it is worth asking yourself, has there been any changes from last year? Is there something that we need to confirm with the client because of these updates that have been made? Not just relying on the senior to do all the heavy lifting, but as a junior, taking that step to be willing to learn and to ask those smart questions will really help accelerate your learning and to build a strong technical base. The fourth tip that I have for you is to speak out if you're feeling overwhelmed or if you feel like you're getting overworked. One thing that really stuck out to me for the past 6 or 7 years of my career is that nobody is going to be your biggest supporter other than you. So if there is something that's bothering you, no one's going to go out of their way to help you unless you've voiced what your concerns are. So don't be afraid to speak your mind, but in a polite and reasonable way, to get the things that you want in your life and your career, and not just rely on maybe that others might have picked up on you and will be there to support you, because they won't know unless you tell them. This is especially applicable because, there are a couple of horror stories out there with new starts having these crazy hours, working late into the night, and even their weekends for the first couple years. But I feel like this is totally not true. At least for my case, it wasn't. And maybe it depends on where you live in the world, in which city that you live, because depending on whether, you're in the East Coast, like New York and Toronto, which are financial capitals and tend to be busier than the West Coast, like Vancouver and LA, regardless of where you work and how much work there is, I feel like it's not worth it to risk your mental sanity just to get ahead in your career. While it's important to have a positive attitude and to accept all kinds of work that might come your way, you also need to learn how to stand up for yourself and to know your limits and to speak out when you feel like you're being overworked. It is especially not necessary if there is capacity within the system, if there's other peers who don't have work, and if you're just being overworked and inundated with work. So make sure that you reach out to your HR or your coach to speak about the projects and the hours you've been working, and to find solutions on how to delegate that work to someone else who might have capacity. I feel that these public practice accounting firms are run by very reasonable and fair management teams. And I find that they value their people because their people are their greatest assets. It is a service firm after all. And they also care about your well-being in the end. And the only way to maintain your well-being is if you communicate it to the people at your firm. The fifth and last tip that I have for you guys is to just enjoy the journey. I often find new starts very eager to work, which is a good thing, but also very worried that they might not be prepared enough. And as I mentioned previously, people really expect you to know nothing on the first day. So all you can really do is to have a positive attitude, try to learn as much as you can on the job, and at the same time, have fun along the way. So take advantage of this and give yourself a tiny break, because you just graduated from university, went through stressful times trying to land this job, and now you're finally here. You should really be in the moment and enjoy this experience. Build meaningful relationships with people at work, with your peers, and at the same time, have a little fun. Go to that happy hour after work, even though that might be a little bit difficult now given the circumstances. But one thing that I am so grateful that I did was that I took the time to really enjoy those first 2 years. even though I did work late into the night, I still remember good and fond memories of working with my peers, ordering food in the office, or even just taking that vacation to go traveling, or, enjoying the happy hours after work with my peers, or studying towards my CPA exam with my study buddy. I look back on those memories and those time very fondly, and I don't think of them as sacrifices at all to have come to the position that I am here today, because I was aware when I felt like I was burning out, and I told myself that it was okay to give myself a break, to relax and not be always working so hard, because a person needs balance. And looking back, if I had pushed myself to get ahead and I worked really long hours, I don't think I would have been that happy, and I don't think I would have reflected back on those times very positively. So to sum everything up, I guess my one big tip for you is to go into your new career, your new professional job, just thinking that you're going to have a balanced life and to not take yourself too seriously. I hope you guys found my video useful today. If you guys did, please hit that subscribe and like button for more videos in the future. If you guys have any questions, please leave them in the comment section down below, and I promise I'll get to them. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!